Hello there, my name is Imaproshaman, and this is my submission for the Mobile Speedrun Marathon 2019. So, this game is called Monument Valley 2. It is the second game in, I guess you could call the series of Monument Valley games. The second game came out in 2017, the first game is 2014, and it's a mobile game that is about puzzles and geometry and solving things in a way that you originally might think would be a little unexpected. So this is the first level. It's very short. It's like 9 seconds long. It's like 2 inputs, not very hard. This game I wouldn't say is very hard. It's fairly easy once you know the route. It definitely has a lot of loading screens and cutscenes, so it is kind of artificially lengthened, I guess, if you could say. But, I mean, it happens, right? So, the timing for levels usually begins when you click on the little circle at the start of the level and ends whenever a character's feet reaches the end platform and the animation of their feet stops moving. There's there's one or two levels where the timing doesn't end like that, and it's kind of arbitrary, but the timing is down to the frame, so it's definitely consistent. So that's good. So this game centers around two characters. One character is Ro, which is the older, taller one with the hair bun, and the younger red one is just known as Child, doesn't really have a name. The mother and child, and it's a story about an adventure, sort of like growing up and learning about the world, and it's there's no dialogue or anything. It's mostly just visual and musical. The soundtrack to this game is very good, as with both games have very good soundtracks. This is the first real puzzle where it just revolves around walking back and forth around this platform. This game does have a few glitches, usually during a cutscene you can't walk during it, or you can't have the character moving during the cutscene, because right when the cutscene happens, after stepping on a button or whatever, the game will restrict your movement and you can't walk anymore. But there's some specific cases where if you tap fast enough, right when you there's a 5-frame window, I think, where if you step on the button and you tap where you want to move, but it's before you get on the button all the way, it's the space between when you first step on the button and between being in the middle of the button, if that makes sense. It's a very small window, but specific cases you can walk during cutscenes, and the time save is kind of negligible, but I mean, isn't most speed games negligible time save, right? But yeah, this level is fairly straightforward. I mean, all the levels in this game are fairly straightforward. But yeah, this is another section right for the end. It's sort of like the first puzzle-based thing, but yeah. So you have to move around this block, and then this is one of the few examples where you can move this platform while the cutscene of the ladder is raising. It's one of the few examples of that. It's small time save. Yeah. So here we have the first instance of, I don't know how to describe it. I guess they're an elder character that helps the characters on their journey. It's kind of just backstory, I guess, for the audience. There's one every level, and usually it's 3 pieces of dialogue you can just skip. It's mostly just elderly advice, I guess. It kind of becomes apparent at the end of the game what their purpose is, but yeah. So here, even though this last room was this right here, this last room is technically a cutscene, the timing would still end when the feet reach the end platform and stop moving. So yeah, this is the first instance of seeing the shapes go into the character's hat. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't really know. It's kind of relevant to the first game. The first game had it where every time you finished a level, you would like take your hat off and like a shape would come out of it. But in this game, it's kind of reversed. So that was chapter 2, which is a very pretty chapter. I like it. Chapter 3 is pretty pretty. I mean, they're all pretty. It's a very beautiful game. Oasis is definitely cool. I like, its first instance of like, I guess, real puzzles. It has a lot of fast inputs, and I like the flow it has. I did make a mistake here where I went too fast and the child was left behind, but that is actually kind of a time loss because you have to like, Ro has to like wave to her and stuff, and you have to, which I don't think I've ever really done that before, but it happens, right? Stuff happens on a reset, This is just a little bit of basic like platform moving. It's not too hard. This is the first instance, I guess, of like I guess this is the first instance of showcasing the interaction between the two characters and like how they care about each other and stuff. I think it's a pretty sweet moment, It shows it's like, oh, it's pretty wholesome, I guess. I like that. So this is another, I guess, kind of puzzle, and these two buttons you can walk over as I'm tapping very fast here. You can walk over the second button while this small cutscene happens, but the timing is not always perfectly. It's kind of difficult to get. The second button is a lot more lenient with the cutscene tapping through it. Like, this game isn't entirely consistent with like what you can and can't tap for some reason, which is weird. But yeah, so this is the first example of the shape thing coming out of the hat, and in this game you have to like make a shape yourself. I found through Leftist Tachyon, the fellow runner of this game, that if you do a circle around the shape, around the center of the circle of the place where you make the shape, I guess, like with your finger really fast, it's like much faster than just making a random circle. I don't know if that makes sense, but there is some optimization to it, which is cool. This chapter also is very cool. It's the first chapter where it incorporates both characters having to do something, like in the level to progress, which is a pretty unique style of gameplay as compared to the first game where it was just one character. I found recently you only have to tap one door and both characters will walk in, which is interesting. Good to know. So here's another example of advice the character gets, because advice is always good in your life. There's not the strength to hold on, but the strength to let go. Which is talking about, like, don't handhold your kid so much, you gotta let her grow up or whatever. I guess that's kind of what it's saying. Kind of a story about growth and stuff. Yeah, so this is the first example of really using like both characters to do stuff. It's pretty straightforward, but that was actually pretty optimized considering I usually don't do it right. I mean, I had to go back and forth a bit at the end there, that wasted time, but that's fine. Another example of having to do two things with two characters. I was thinking actually about optimizing this a little better. Maybe you can move during cutscene. I'm not entirely sure, because to the parts where you can move during cutscene, you kind of just have to figure it out. It's not always entirely apparent that you can. Sometimes the timing is like really tight, as I said, but it's a neat scene nonetheless. And there's a bit of optimization in this little part here, where you just have to basically twist it like left and right, pretty much. That was actually pretty good though, how I did that, pretty fast. And then I just spun it a lot because it was fun, I don't know. It was something to do. Usually you can't spin objects or move objects during a cutscene. This is like one of the few examples. Well, yeah, one of the few examples where you can. Which is weird. The game is kind of inconsistent, I don't know. I mean, it was probably made by like different people, you know, it probably wasn't worked on by like the same 4 people, so can't expect everything to be consistent, I guess, which is fair. So yeah, most of the time when I did the spinning, I had to do it like 2 times to get it, but it's kind of a learned skill. It's the first run I incorporated doing that in, so surprised I got it most of the time, second try. But I like the shapes and the end platform. It's kind of like a lore of the world, sort of. It's interesting. This is the first, well, I said the last chapter was the first real puzzle chapter, but this is the first chapter that can kind of be a little bit challenging if you don't know how to do it. But once you know how to do it, obviously it's pretty easy, but I really like the aesthetic of this level. It's a bunch of just tiny little islands, sort of. And, that was showing the child leading leading both of the characters, which kind of is a way of, like, symbolizing the mother not hand-holding as much and letting the child, you know, do things on her own because she's capable or whatever. Which I think is pretty sweet. It's a pretty nice, like, growth moment, I guess. So yeah, this chapter's a lot of just back and forth. Of walking back and forth to doors and stuff. Which is, you know, unique concept. I don't think the first game had a lot of that. This chapter also has a lot of raising up and down to move stuff and then putting it back down like that. Which is pretty cool. You can move to the top of that while that tiny little movement cutscene happens, but it's kind of... I didn't quite get it. It's kind of janky. One thing I can say about this game is it's a little jank, but it's fun. This is another example of going through a bunch of doors. I went through the wrong door, but that's okay. You have to step on the button before you go through the door, so you can have the right platform raised and stuff. Aside from the first time I went the door wrong, I did this room pretty optimally. Not that it's like too hard, but yeah, it's good. Yeah, so this is a room that I did a little bit slow right at the beginning here, but doing it like this so that you twist it so you end up right next to the person saves time. Not having to walk across the beam, obviously. More advice, because advice is good. It's a pretty short one, thankfully. This is interesting because you can't, so you can move during the first half of the cutscene, I guess, But once you move that down, you stop moving, so I'm thinking I could possibly move during cutscene there, but I still have to, like, test it out. So that's interesting. Always new strats with this game, you know, you just come up with them on the fly, because you're like, I wonder if that works. And you try it, and you're like, oh, I guess it does. It saves, like, 0.1, not a big deal, you know? Again, with the second try, it's a little bit weird to try to do it first try, but I do eventually get it a bit better later on in the run, which is good. So this is the docks. One of the, well, only chapter where the entire purpose of it being there is really just exposition, I guess, non-dialogue based exposition for the audience. It's 2 inputs. You touch at the middle of the top stairs and then once at the end of the docks. So the time would begin when you press the button and end when your feet reaches the end of the docks. So this level, IL-wise, like, it's kind of task, because you can't really go any faster than the base walking speed, so this is probably like an unbeatable record for this level. But, you know, this chapter shows an important moment in both the characters where a child is going on a journey and, you know, like, finding herself and growing up and stuff, and the mother is just, like, happy that she's going on a journey, but also sad because it's like misses her child, you know? It's like, oh. And the music here is just so perfect. It really makes you feel. It's so good. It's probably one of my favorite moments in the game, honestly. Probably one of my favorite chapters, like second favorite. I love the towers. The aesthetic of the visuals are very nice, and I did make a mistake here, which I don't usually do, where I just flipped it wrong, but whatever. It's very puzzly with, like, turning objects a bunch, and I really like how they did it in this, and it's, like, the music is really good, and that is, I believe that's 1 cycle, I could be wrong. But that is the optimal way to do it. Aside from the wrong turning I did twice, but it happens. The turning in this game is a little bit weird. So yeah, this level's a lot about perspective and using things to turn in ways that you didn't think were normal. So I turned after I went through the door there to set up the platform to be in the right position for when I come out of this room. This again is another example of advice. Advice is good. As I set it up so I could walk on this platform here, that is definitely good, because that platform is technically 2 platforms, so that was pretty optimal, actually really good. I've done this room many times and it took a bit to memorize it, because it's a lot to memorize. I did turn a bit wrong there, but it's a little bit confusing at first, but it happens. This is like also right here, you can see I tap where there's a door in there, but I'm not looking at the door. Usually for this game, you can't tap where a door is, you have to tap, like, you can't tap where a door is behind a wall. It's like the only example in this game where you can. For some reason, the first game you could do it for, like, most doors if they were behind a wall. This game's a lot more restrictive about like movement and stuff than the first game, but that's okay. Still, that chapter was pretty optimal, so it's fine. Almost got it first try, but not quite. That's okay though. I like that chapter though. It has a very nice art style, and the music is very kind of cryptic and like, I don't know, it's really nice. I like it a lot. Definitely a fun speedrun with all the turning of the objects and stuff. Has a nice flow. So, this chapter is about this totem, which is a reference to the first game, because in that first game there was a yellow and blue totem character that you could walk on top of that would help you on your journey. And this game has a similar character who helps, which I don't really know how to explain except showing you what I mean, but you'll see in this next scene. This game does deal a lot with perspective and how stuff works. So see here, you can walk on the top, but then you have to walk on the side, and it's like, what? That's weird, you know? Moving the totem onto the button before you walk out means that the moment you walk out of the door, you are already moving, which saves time, obviously. Same as with here, you just do this as fast as possible, saves time. This level's a lot about, well, the game itself is, but this level especially is a lot about, chapter, I should say, is a lot about moving, moving objects or the totem while, like, the other character is walking around. So, like, this character's walking and they move totem while they're walking because it saves time. It's a bunch of doing stuff while other stuff is happening to save time. This is the first kind of tricky room that, when I casually played it, was a little bit challenging, but when, you know, once you figure it out, it's not too bad. This is like one of the only times I ever did it, like, consistently. Or, I mean, optimally. That was very optimal. Then the end is pretty spooky, but very interesting reveal, definitely. Dun 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 dun. Plot twist, the totem is a door totem. What? Like, that's so interesting that that exists, but you just never had seen it before because the totem was turned a different direction. Like, that's so funny. I don't know. I think Doordom is definitely a cool take on the character, as with compared to the last game. This is, like, probably my favorite chapter. That is extremely optimal, so that starting the level right when the zoom in happens on the first level, that was very optimal. It saves time. Not having to go through the whole entire, like, I guess, animation. So this room is a lot about just, like, zooming in and in and in, trying to reach the character. And, I did this room optimally because I finally remembered how to do it. room that usually troubled me for some reason. I want to say this is the first instance in this game of movable ladders, I think. Which is a pretty unique concept, I think. There I touched the bottom of the ladder so that I could get down faster. Very small time save, I think. First example of a very mind-bending room. Like, your eyes try to make sense of it, and you're like, oh, you walk on that side, but then that door is upside down, so how does that work? You know, like, when you look at the staircase right here, you think it's going up, but you're actually going down, and your mind goes, what? That's crazy. That's what I like about these games, is they're very mind-bendy. And I think it's kind of a unique concept. I don't know. So this moving platform right here with the button, you can walk across the 2 extra blocks after the platform moves, but the time save is extremely negligible, and the timing is extremely precise, so it's not really, I mean, I guess you can try it, like it doesn't lose you time if you don't do it, but I mean, I guess it's negligible, so So this is the first example, well, no, sorry. This is an example of the character Ro, the mother, her backstory. She also went, you know, on a journey to grow up and find herself or whatever, and it's kind of giving the audience a sort of backstory of maybe it was hard for her to let her child go on the same thing because she had to go on it and, you know, on a similar journey, and it's like, oof, hits you right in the feels, you know? This chapter could probably sub 4 minutes, but the chapter's in, like, such a large portion of it is cutscene, it's like, you can't. Like, just this end cutscene is, like, 15 seconds. Or 10, but it's a lot. It's like, you're just like, I want to get to the end platform, but then it's like, cutscene, bro. But it's okay. And there's my first time getting it one try, which is awesome. Very cool chapter though, I like it a lot. This chapter is also one of the ones that I struggled with a lot when I played it casually. But it uses this new concept of the door totem really well, and I like it a lot. It's very cool. Like, it adds an extra layer to the totem. It's really neat. I did get a little confused here because I thought I did it wrong, but I did it right. But it happens. There I didn't quite climb up so that I could have room for totem to walk across. Go back to the door, you go over here, and then you just walk across as you do. I like that they added walking over its eye. Like, makes it blink. It's kind of funny. Adds kind of a little personality, you know. I paused a bit there because I was remembering how to do it, but it's pretty simple. Also, like, one of the few examples where you can move during that cutscene, where that block was moving. But handy that you can. And yet again, we have reached the advice portion of this chapter, which I guess technically the last chapter didn't have that. And there we have reached the end of chapter 10, which is the end of the main story. Didn't quite get it first try that time, but that's okay. And now you might be wondering, oh, well, what happened to the child's journey? Well, now we can find out. Which is a very interesting and unique way to display the story, I think. You get one story, and then you get the other story. I really like the child's chapters. I think they're they're all very unique, as opposed, or not supposed, as compared with the 10 other main chapters. That's what I like about this game. I like how every chapter has something unique to the other ones. This one has to do with the rotating of weird blocks. I did mess up a bit on the rotating there, but in my defense, the rotating is a little bit weird with this. It's not perfect. I did manage to get 2 skips here, though. Right here, where I tapped during the cutscene, which I don't think I've ever gotten. I think the timing is like really, really precise. Or maybe I'm just bad. It could be the former, maybe the latter. The second one, I have gotten this cutscene up the stairs skip here before. I didn't get it last run, though, so getting to this run was really awesome. Because if I hadn't, I'd still be standing at the bottom until I started being able to turn that, so it's good that I got it. I did do this wrong, but it happens. I just kind of forgot how to do it. There's a lot to memorize in this game. It's kind of, you know, sometimes you forget stuff, but it happens. This is unique. I like the presentation of this scene. It's really like an interesting way to use the movable platforms and the spinning ones. And I really like how this shadowing works on this block. It's cool. I just really like this game. It's so pretty. Here's some advice. I've been told that apparently you can soft lock in this. You can soft lock in this room apparently, and apparently it's pretty precise. Thankfully, I haven't gotten it in a run. but I heard that it has happened in a world record run, which is kind of unfortunate. First example of child using the hat to do the things with the center, the end platform thing. Not really sure, I don't have a name for it. But it implies growth. I believe it takes time to learn how to do that in their world, in their lore, I guess. This chapter is probably my third favorite. It is very beautiful, and I love the mechanic, like the ideas behind this chapter. Like everything about this chapter is amazing. First of all, you can move during a lot of the button pressing cutscenes in this, for some reason, specifically in this chapter, which is very awesome. This chapter uses light to grow and revert growth of trees to use as platforms, which is a very unique mechanic, and I think it is very awesome and works very well. I usually end up doing this part wrong, because it's a little bit confusing, but thankfully it didn't take me too many tries this time. It's pretty easy. Didn't quite make it on the button there, but it's okay. Not a big deal. I love how the platforms move up like that. It's very neat looking. Lined up that top one there nicely. I love this chapter so much. Because it's showing like how as the trees grow, the child grows. It's sort of like a metaphorical, literal literal visual representation of like growth using trees which grow, and the character's growth like through her life. And I don't know, I love that kind of symbolism. It's like it teaches this message well, and I really like how it does it. I also really like the unique mechanic of this level, where it is rotating blocks to make platforms, which works pretty well, I think. And I like how here it uses the same blocks from this scene as it does in the next scene. Which is a unique way of like showing that the places are very similar, or close by. This is also a room that was a little bit tricky to figure out when I first played it, but once you get it, it's not too bad. Can't move during this cutscene, which is unfortunate, but not a big deal. Because it's not a very long cutscene anyway. So you have to move the block while the yellow blocks are not on it. That's such like an interesting like puzzle element. I like it. And we have reached yet again more advice. Something that extremely bothers me is it's the only advice in the entire game where it's two 2 sets of dialogue you have to skip instead of 3, where everyone else in the game is 3. Why is it only 2 in this one specific chapter? I'm not sure. Bothers me a little bit. Not a big deal, but you know. I like the usage of the same block, like over and over again. In this puzzle, it's cool. And I got it first try, which is awesome. And we have finally reached the last chapter. Such a touching reunion. Ugh. And the music, the way it... Oh, it's so good. So yeah, this is the last chapter. It involves having to actually touch... Because... So I mentioned in an earlier chapter where you had to press the ground for a character to move onto it. And both characters would move. This one you have to touch each platform for each character to move. Which is kind of annoying, but since the point of the chapter is actually using both characters separately to do things, it kind of makes sense. But sometimes it's a little tricky to get stuff to line up right to save time. But you know. Did that a little slow because I kind of forgot how to do it, but it happens. So I'm showcasing here really fast. Just if you have them both walk at the same time, they'll like walk into each other and the game kind of freaks out. It makes the one character stop at the end of the door, so you have to touch the door again, which is weird, but yeah, so this is like one of the only examples in the game of using like perspective in this way, which the first game had a lot more of, and I really like this style of thing here. It's very, very unique. And I placed the child there so that she could go in the door instantly, and then look, that way it's much faster. So that's actually like fairly optimal. It could be probably a little bit slightly more faster, but optimal anyways. This is one of the last few rooms of this chapter that I always struggle with for some reason. I always do it wrong. I don't know why. It's kind of a lot. It's kind of I guess it's like it's at the end of a run that's like, you know, a little over 40 minutes. It's kind of long. So it happens. That's how you're supposed to do it. I did take a bit to do it, but you know, time saved for next run, right? And I like how they use the background of something that you're walking on. Like, it shows you like a kind of perspective of the level. You can have both characters glitch into each other like in the last run, but I think it's like way more precise and not necessary, and also waste time, but this game's weird. This is like another room that I always struggled with, but for this run I actually finally have it down, so it's okay. Sometimes it just takes a bit to memorize stuff, you know? I like the, I really like the puzzle mechanic in this level of using, like, the singular platform that does everything. Very interesting. I did make a mistake here where I don't quite move child on the platform before stepping on the button again, but it happens, you know, sometimes you forget how to do stuff. Again, it is at the end of like a kind of long run. This is like one of the few speedruns I do that's actually over 30 minutes, so I mean, 43 or whatever isn't, 46 isn't that long, but it happens. I like how it was showcasing like just the one block that prevented you from moving up. It's interesting. And here we are at the last part of the game. How sad. So that whole walking up that whole platform right before the end here, I retimed this run, and it is a PB. It's like a 46:28, I think, or something like that. World record's like 43 something. So, definitely improvement over my first 55, which my 55 time was just a run to get moderator because the last mod wasn't active on the leaderboard or whatever. So it was kind of I didn't put very much work in the run. So I'm glad to have put work in this run. Real quick before I end, you know, it's this unique kind of, I like the credits here, it's showing like all the elder characters and the logo, it's very pretty. I want to thank the Mobile Speedrun Marathon for allowing me to showcase this beautiful game and wonderful speedrun. Might Valley 1 and 2 both are not free, but they're fairly cheap, so I would definitely say check it out. Very fun game. Games. Awesome people that worked on it, obviously. You know, I showcased the first game at the last Mobile Speedrun Marathon, which is the second one. This year is the third one. Thank you for allowing me to showcase this awesome run, and good luck to the rest of the runners.